The late afternoon light spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Prescott family's Beverly Hills estate, but it failed to dispel the inherent coldness of the vast living room. Olivia Morgan was on her knees on the impeccable marble floor, meticulously wiping away the last smudge. Her long dark hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and her drab, worn work clothes made her seem utterly out of place amidst the surrounding luxury. She looked more like a housekeeper than Mrs. Prescott, the lady of the house. Crash! A sharp sound echoed. An expensive fine china teacup shattered next to Olivia's hand. Sharp fragments scattered, one of them slicing the back of her hand, leaving a trail of bright red blood. Olivia froze but didn't raise her head. Seated on the designer sofa, Eleanor, her mother-in-law, watched her with crossed arms and a gaze as sharp as a razor. "What are you doing? You can't even clean a floor properly. Or do you have eyes in the back of your head? Didn't you see I was having my tea?" Olivia remained silent. The hand holding the cloth tightened. She gathered the pieces, trying not to let her blood stain the floor. "You sealess," Eleanor hissed, her voice dripping with contempt. "Clean it again. And you will keep cleaning it until I say it's clean." Olivia only nodded. She silently went to get a dustpan and a new cloth. 3 years of marriage, and she was used to this. The humiliation, the insults, the scorn. At that moment, the roar of a sports car's engine sounded from beyond the gates, and the front door opened. Ethan Prescott walked in. He wore an impeccable tailored suit, his tall frame and handsome face exuding a cold authority. He was the CEO of the Prescott Group, a man admired all over New York. He glanced around the living room. His gaze passed over Olivia, kneeling on the floor, and the broken porcelain as if she were just air, an inanimate decorative object. He didn't even frown. "Ethan, my son, you're here." Eleanor's expression changed instantly from severe to smiling. "Come here, Mother had your favorite lobster bisque prepared." Ethan shook his head and went straight to the bar, pouring himself a glass of bourbon. He didn't look at Olivia once. "Mother, I'm not staying for dinner." He downed the bourbon in one gulp. "Jessica needs me." Olivia's body tensed. Her hand, cleaning the floor, paused for an instant. Jessica Sterling, his beautiful and talented executive assistant, the woman the entire Prescott family, except for her, adored. Eleanor glanced sideways at Olivia. "Well," she sighed, her voice full of insinuation, "you should sort that out once and for all. Our family cannot be without an heir. Jessica, at least, is far more sensible." She spoke loudly on purpose. "Look at that thing. Can't even produce an heir. And on top of it all, she's an illiterate hick. If it weren't for old Arthur forcing you before he died, why would our family bring this trash into our home to dirty it?" Every word was like a thorn piercing Olivia's heart. Illiterate was the label Ethan Prescott had given her from the day she first set foot in this house. 3 years earlier, Ethan's grandfather, who had saved her and her family during a flash flood in their small town in West Virginia, had forced Ethan to marry her. On his deathbed, he had taken her hand and told her that Ethan wasn't a bad person. He only asked her to be patient. But he was wrong. Ethan said nothing more, turned, adjusted his shirt collar, and walked out. He came and went like a gust of cold wind, never stopping for her. The car's engine roared again and then faded into the distance. In the enormous living room, only Eleanor and Olivia remained. "What are you standing there for, you wretched girl?" Eleanor screamed. "Go up to your room. Just looking at you gets on my nerves." Olivia lowered her head, her hands clutching the cloth so tightly her knuckles turned white. She stood up, silently cleaned the broken pieces and the floor, and then headed for the service staircase that led to her cold room in the attic. For 3 years, she had been married, living like a maid, an invisible shadow in her own home. In a setting completely opposite to the Prescott mansion, at the most luxurious restaurant in Manhattan with a panoramic view of the illuminated city skyline, the soft sound of a violin mingled with the clinking of crystal glasses. Ethan Prescott meticulously cut the filet mignon on his plate. Across from him sat Jessica Sterling. She wore a burgundy silk dress that enhanced her fair skin and curvaceous figure. Her wavy hair fell softly, her face expertly made up. She was the epitome of the modern, successful woman any man would desire. Jessica put down her fork, her beautiful eyes veiled with a thin mist, her voice filled with remorse. "Ethan," she called softly, "I bothered you again today. I know you should be at home with Olivia, but I was so scared." Ethan looked up, and the cold gaze he wore at home instantly melted, replaced by an unusual tenderness. "What nonsense is that? You had a nightmare. Of course, you should have called me." "But," Jessica bit her lip, "I'm afraid your mother will make things difficult for Olivia." "When you called earlier," her voice didn't sound very happy. She sighed like a fragile flower in the wind. "I feel sorry for her. She was used to living in the countryside. Coming to a city like New York can't be easy, and since she can't read or write, she can't even communicate. She must feel so lonely." Ethan laughed coldly, the tenderness vanishing as soon as Olivia's name was mentioned. "Sorry for her? Please. A country girl who gets to wear silk thanks to my grandfather, landing the position of Mrs. Prescott is the luckiest thing that will ever happen to her. She should be grateful instead of walking around with that funereal face every day." He looked at Jessica, his gaze tender again. He pulled a dark blue velvet box from his jacket pocket. "For you." Jessica covered her mouth, her eyes wide with surprise. Inside, a diamond necklace sparkled, featuring a heart-shaped pendant made of an extremely rare pink diamond. "Ethan, this is the heart of the Atlantic. I got it at a Sotheby's auction in London last month," Ethan said, his voice full of affection. "Only you deserve things like this." Jessica stood, walked around the table, and personally fastened the necklace around her neck. Her skin was cool against the back of his neck, making him shiver slightly. She turned, wrapped her arms around his neck, her gaze passionate. "Ethan, you're so good to me." Her breath, smelling of expensive perfume, grazed his face. "But I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" he asked, tightening his grip on her waist. "I'm afraid we'll stay like this forever. I love you, but I don't want to be the other woman eternally. I want to be with you openly." Jessica looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "So, when? When can I officially be your wife, Ethan?" Her question hit the nerve of a frustration Ethan had been hiding. Yes, Olivia Morgan, the thorn in his side, his biggest obstacle. He hated her existence, her silence, her humble origins, and her ignorance. If it weren't for the 20% of company shares his grandfather had left in her name in a trust, he would have thrown her out of the Prescott family long ago. But now, the group was in trouble. Ethan released Jessica and returned to his chair. He looked at the bright lights across the window. Jessica sensed the change immediately. She sat down. Instead of pressing, she switched to a concerned tone. "The company is in trouble again, isn't it? The project in Europe." Ethan nodded. "There's a liquidity problem. That old man, Henderson from the board, is pushing to see the books." Jessica frowned. She was more than just a pretty face. "Ethan, what if we use Olivia's shares?" Ethan's expression darkened. "Those shares are locked in my grandfather's trust. They're only effective if she voluntarily signs the transfer." Jessica smiled, a smile full of subtext that Ethan missed. "Have you forgotten?" she said softly. "She can't read or write." The attic room was cold and empty, the polar opposite of the luxury downstairs. There were no wool carpets or mahogany furniture, just a hard single bed and an old desk. This had been Olivia Morgan's world for the last 3 years. She silently closed the thin wooden door and slid the bolt. The dry click of the latch echoed like a switch separating two worlds. The moment the door was shut, Olivia's submissive, frightened demeanor vanished. Her back, once slightly stooped with resignation, straightened. Her eyes, always downcast and evasive, lifted. In the darkness, they were sharp and as cold as ice. She reached under the bed and pulled out a metal briefcase, carefully locked with a code. She opened it. Inside, there was no country clothing, but a custom, military-grade encrypted laptop, a model that couldn't be bought with money. Olivia sat at the desk and turned on the computer. The screen didn't show the usual Windows or Mac OS interface, but a proprietary, encrypted operating system. After 3 layers of complex passwords and a retinal scan, the main screen lit up. There were no shopping or entertainment websites. The entire screen was covered with complex graphs, running algorithms, and global stock market data updated every nanosecond. She accessed an end-to-end encrypted email system. The inbox instantly filled with a series of unread emails. Subject: JPM, Ariadne, we need your opinion on the Fed's upcoming bond issue. Subject: FMA, Ariadne, the $500 billion bailout package you predicted has failed. The London market is in chaos. Subject: TIR, Ariadne, we don't understand your model. How did you know the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund was going to divest? Ariadne, a mythical name in the underground financial world. She was a living legend, a mysterious analyst who had never revealed her face, someone who accurately predicted the collapse of Lehman Brothers in 2008 when she was just a teenager, who warned of the 2024 tech bubble. Wall Street would be willing to pay hundreds of millions of dollars just to know Ariadne's identity. They could never imagine that the Ariadne they sought was the illiterate wife, Olivia Morgan, living in the attic of the Prescott family home in Beverly Hills. She not only knew how to read and write, but had graduated with a dual summa cum laude degree in applied mathematics from Harvard and quantitative finance from MIT. She was fluent in 7 languages, not 5. This whole charade was for a promise. Olivia opened a hidden file. It was the only photograph she kept, of her with a kind-looking older man, Arthur Prescott Sr., the man who had saved her and her family in that tragic flood years ago. On his deathbed, he hadn't called for Ethan, he had called for her. "I'm sorry," he'd said, his breath weak. "I didn't raise Ethan well. Arrogance and prejudice have blinded him. He doesn't see your worth." He told her about the secret trust. "If he betrays you, Olivia, you owe him nothing. Use that sword and the 30% of shares I've secretly left you in another trust and take back everything that is yours. Show no mercy." 3 years had passed. She had given him countless chances, but in return, she had only received humiliation, coldness, and the name Jessica. Olivia returned to the screen, opening another window monitoring the Prescott Group's stock. It was plummeting. She clearly saw Ethan's poor investment decisions. He had been overconfident, trying to enter the European biotech market without proper preparation. The group's liquidity was drying up. In just 10 minutes, with a few short sell and buyback orders, she could easily save the situation. But she didn't. Grandfather Prescott's promise still echoed. If he betrays you, the betrayal hadn't officially happened yet. She was still waiting. She scrolled through the emails, rapidly typing complex command lines, giving instructions to the world's largest investment banks. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, so fast they created a blur. Exit German market. Short the Nikkei. Buy gold. Restructure Argentina's debt. After an hour of work, she closed the laptop, put it back in the briefcase, and locked it. Ariadne disappeared. Olivia Morgan, the peasant, illiterate wife, was back. She sat on the bed, listening to the roar of Ethan's sports car outside. He had returned, but he wouldn't come up here. He didn't even consider this room part of the house. The cold of the attic seemed to seep into her heart. In the CEO's office of the Prescott Group, crash, the crystal ashtray was thrown by Ethan Prescott against the opposite wall, shattering into pieces. Useless, a bunch of useless fools. He screamed at the department heads on a video call. "I pay you millions of dollars a year, and you can't solve a simple liquidity problem. The German banks are refusing to extend the loan. Why?" The directors bowed their heads. No one dared to answer. The biotech project in Europe had failed spectacularly. It was burning through the Prescott Group's money faster than a furnace. Shareholders had already started asking questions. Ethan ended the call abruptly, loosening his tie. He was truly in trouble. At that moment, the office door opened gently. Jessica Sterling entered, holding a cup of hot coffee. She wasn't wearing her secretarial uniform but a sensual, form-fitting dress. "Ethan," she said softly, walking around the desk and placing her hands on his shoulders, massaging them gently. "Don't get so upset. I'm sure there's a solution." Her warmth and perfume calmed Ethan a little. He closed his eyes, leaning back in his chair. "What solution?" "Every bank has turned its back on me." Jessica smiled. "The banks may have turned their back on you, but the Prescott family hasn't." Ethan opened his eyes. "What do you mean?" I just remembered, Jessica said, as if by chance. I think Grandfather Prescott left some shares to Olivia before he died. It's 20%, Ethan frowned. Yes, but they're locked in a trust. They're useless unless she voluntarily signs the transfer. But isn't she your wife? Jessica interrupted, her voice full of insinuation. A wife has a responsibility to share her husband's burdens. Ethan, she looked at him, just say what you have to say. She trusts you a lot, Jessica said, her fingers sliding lightly down his chest. Besides, I've heard she can't read or write. If it's to save the group, to save the family, maybe she'll agree to sign some papers to help the company. After all, she's a Prescott too. A chilling silence filled the office. Ethan suddenly realized. He looked at Jessica. She's illiterate. A cruel, excited smile slowly formed on his handsome face. That's right. An illiterate person knows nothing about stock transfer agreements. Jessica, seeing he understood, added, This weekend, New York High Society is hosting a charity gala, the Heart of the City Gala, to raise funds for underprivileged children. There will be a lot of reporters. She looked at him passionately. If you take Olivia, you show off your husband and wife love, and then, as if it's nothing, you sign some donation papers in front of everyone. No one will suspect a thing. When Ethan entered the kitchen, she instinctively took a step back, preparing for the usual insults or indifference. But today, Ethan didn't walk past. He stopped. Olivia. His voice wasn't cold. It could almost be considered gentle. Olivia looked up, her eyes wide, showing surprise and a little fear. It was the first time in 3 years he had said her name without a hint of contempt. This weekend, I'm taking you to an event, he said, trying to sound natural. Olivia shook her head hastily, her hands clutching her apron. I can't go. I don't know how to socialize. I'll embarrass you. It doesn't matter. Ethan was unusually patient, even taking a step toward her. It's a very meaningful charity event. You just have to be there with me. He looked at her. There will be a large donation for underprivileged children. I want you to represent the Prescott family and sign the donation papers. Olivia stared at him, trying to find sincerity in his eyes, but she only saw poorly disguised falsehood. Get yourself a decent dress, he added, turning away but keeping his tone gentle. Don't worry, I'll be there. He left the kitchen. Olivia stood motionless, her hands clenched. A charity event. Signing papers. Ethan, who had always considered her a stain, was voluntarily taking her to a place full of reporters. She knew the Prescott Group's situation well. She knew he was desperate. The fish had finally taken the bait. The Plaza Hotel, New York. The Heart of the City charity gala was indeed extremely luxurious. The media and prominent figures of New York were all present. Ethan Prescott, in an elegant tuxedo, stepped out of a Rolls-Royce. He walked around the car to open the door, but the person who emerged was not Jessica, as usual, but Olivia Morgan. She wore a simple long beige dress, her hair in a low bun. The clothes were clean, but compared to the designer gowns and glittering jewels around her, she looked like a sparrow lost in a flock of peacocks. All the cameras turned toward them. For the first time in his life, Ethan put his arm around Olivia's waist. Her body tensed. She played the part of a frightened country girl clinging to her husband's arm perfectly. Mr. Prescott, is this Mrs. Prescott? What a surprise, Mr. Prescott. You brought your wife to the event. And the rumors about your relationship with your secretary, Jessica? Ethan smiled perfectly. Tonight, my wife and I are here for a charitable cause. Olivia, although not used to these noisy places, has a very kind heart. He said these words, but the hand on her waist tightened like a vice, warning her to be quiet. After the mandatory greetings, Ethan didn't take Olivia to the main ballroom, but to a private VIP lounge that was already prepared. You're tired, right? He said, the kindness still on his face, but impatience already visible in his eyes. Rest here. I'm going to greet some partners. In a little while, someone will bring the documents for you to sign. Olivia nodded obediently, sitting on the edge of the sofa, her back straight and her hands on her knees, exactly like a student, waiting for the teacher. Ethan left, satisfied. A long while later, the lounge door opened. It wasn't Ethan, but his personal lawyer, Mr. Davis. Behind him, 2 security guards. Mr. Davis looked uncomfortable. He placed a thick folder of documents on the table. Mrs. Prescott, Mr. Prescott said you agreed to sign this. Olivia looked at the folder. She didn't need to read it. Just from the thickness and the leather cover, she knew they weren't donation papers. At that moment, Ethan entered. He had already gotten rid of the reporters. "Sign it," he said bluntly. Olivia looked at him, then at the folder with a confused expression. "Ethan, you said it was a donation. Why are there so many papers?" Ethan lost his patience. "Why are you asking so many questions? It's the necessary procedure to release the charity funds." He went straight to the last page, a page full of text in English. He pointed to a blank line at the bottom. "Sign your name. Olivia Morgan." "Here." Olivia trembled, acting her part. Her eyes filled with tears, her voice shaky. "Ethan, there are so many letters. I don't know how to read them, you know. What if I sign in the wrong place?" Mr. Davis was sweating bullets. "Mr. Prescott, having an illiterate person sign such an important contract legally—" "Shut up," Ethan shouted, glaring at Mr. Davis. The lawyer fell silent immediately. He turned to Olivia, his anger almost impossible to hide, but he restrained himself, his voice becoming eerily persuasive. "It's just your name. What are you afraid of? Or do you want me to write it out for you to copy like a first grader?" The humiliation in those words made Olivia clench her fists. She sobbed. Where do I sign?" "Here," he pointed to the line. "Yes." Ethan almost sighed in relief. "Write Olivia Morgan here. Come on, be a good girl." His voice was like he was coaxing a child. Olivia picked up the expensive fountain pen, her hand shaking violently. She lowered her head so her hair hid her cold gaze. She began to write, stroke by stroke, slowly and awkwardly, exactly like someone trying to copy a name they don't fully understand. Olivia Morgan. On the last letter, the N of Morgan, she paused. Ethan held his breath. She bit her lip and then finished writing. But on the final stroke of the letter, she deliberately added a tiny, almost imperceptible extra stroke that broke the letter, making it structurally incorrect. It still read Morgan, but legally, it was an invalid signature. She put the pen down, panting as if she had just done something extremely exhausting. Ethan immediately grabbed the folder, quickly glanced at the signature. It looked like the ugly scrawl typical of an illiterate person. He didn't notice the anomaly. A victorious smile appeared on his face. "Done." He closed the folder forcefully. "It's done. Stay here. Don't move. I'm going to take care of the rest." He and Mr. Davis left hurriedly, as if she were a plague. Olivia was left alone in the lounge. Slowly, she lifted her head. There were no more fear or tears. She looked at the hand she had just signed with. A painful signature. Painful not for her but for the stupidity and cruelty of Ethan Prescott. The game was coming to an end. The journey back to the Prescott estate was in absolute silence. If on the way there, Ethan had still tried to play the part of a kind husband, now he didn't even bother to hide his euphoria and aversion. He was constantly on the phone, his voice full of triumph, completely ignoring Olivia sitting next to him. As soon as they entered the living room, he didn't even wait for her to take off her shoes. He loosened his tie, threw himself onto the sofa, and immediately dialed a number. This time, he put it on speaker. Jessica's pampered voice sounded instantly. "Ethan, is it done, my love?" Ethan let out a laugh of pure satisfaction. "Darling, it's done." Olivia, who was taking off her shoes, stopped. She turned around slowly. "Seriously?" Jessica squealed. "That stupid hick signed it?" "Yes." Ethan leaned back, putting his feet on the coffee table. "The 20% of shares is all in my hands. I'm going to transfer it to you immediately. Tomorrow morning, the lawyer will handle all the paperwork. You'll be a major shareholder of the Prescott Group." He looked at Olivia, who stood paralyzed at the door with a provocative gaze. "The Prescott Group is saved, Jessica. You are my greatest savior. Tonight, at your apartment. We have to celebrate." "Yes," Jessica laughed. "I'll be waiting. I love you." The call ended. The atmosphere in the living room turned frigid. Olivia walked toward him, her hands clenched. She was still playing the part of the naive wife. "Ethan," her voice trembled. "What are you talking about? What shares? Transfer to Miss Sterling. It wasn't a charity donation for the children?" "Charity?" Ethan jumped up. He laughed. A loud laugh, but with no joy, only absolute cruelty and contempt. He approached Olivia, his handsome face now looking terrifying. "Do you really think an illiterate hick like you has any value to do charity?" Olivia backed away. "But you said—" "Shut up!" he yelled, tearing off the mask of kindness from the party. 3 years. I've had to put up with you for 3 years. Put up with your ignorant country girl face. Put up with all of New York laughing at me for marrying a simple-minded illiterate." He grabbed her chin, forcing her to look into his eyes. "You think Grandfather Prescott left you 20% of the shares? For what? For you to enjoy? For you to be Mrs. Prescott?" He spat on the floor. "No, that is Prescott family property. It belongs to me. Today, I just took back what's mine." Olivia's tears streamed down. "You tricked me. Tricked you," he laughed disdainfully. "Dealing with an illiterate person isn't called tricking, it's called optimizing resources." He released her chin, but patted her cheek, a gesture of supreme humiliation. "Your only use in these 3 years has been this 20% of shares." Now that the contract is signed, he stepped back, took out a handkerchief, and wiped the fingers that had touched her, as if he had touched something dirty. "You are completely useless." The last words were spoken slowly and clearly. Olivia fell to her knees. Ethan looked at her, kneeling on the floor, his gaze devoid of a shred of compassion. He went to the desk in the corner of the living room, pulled out a folder of documents that had been prepared long ago, and threw it right in her face. The papers scattered, falling around Olivia. "Divorce papers." His voice was as cold as ice. "I've already signed. You get nothing, not a single cent. You came here with nothing. You'll leave with nothing." He bent down and picked up a sheet. "Oh, I forgot. You can't even read." He picked up an ink pad for fingerprints and threw it at her feet. "Put your thumbprint here. Now." Olivia didn't pick up the divorce papers. She just lifted her head and looked at him, tears streaming down her face. Her gaze was no longer one of fear, but of a terrifying emptiness. Ethan saw that look and grew even angrier. "What are you still looking at? You think I'm going to keep you here? Trash that can't even produce an heir. Sign and get out of my house. Now." Olivia remained silent. "Get out." He lost all patience. He ran, grabbed her by the arm, and dragged her toward the door. He threw the front door wide open and pushed her out, making her fall onto the cold steps outside. He stood on the top step, looking down at her. "By tomorrow morning, I don't want to see your face in this house ever again." He slammed the door shut. Olivia lay on the cold granite ground. The coastal night wind blew. Slowly, she sat up, wiped the tears from her face. She looked at the firmly shut wooden door. "Ethan Prescott, the one who has to disappear, is you." She stood up, brushed the dust off her cheap dress, and didn't look back. She walked calmly through the grand gates of the Prescott estate. The heavy oak door of the Prescott mansion closed with a final, resounding thud. Olivia Morgan fell helplessly onto the cold granite steps. The November night wind in Beverly Hills brought a chill that pierced through the cheap fabric of her dress. She had just been thrown out of her home by Ethan Prescott, her legal husband, as if she were a bag of trash. She lay there for a few seconds, feeling the sharp cold penetrate her skin. The sky began to drizzle. The cold raindrops fell on her face, mixing with the tears of humiliation she deliberately let flow. She sat up slowly. The rain began to fall harder, torrential, washing away the cheap makeup from her face, revealing a delicate but pale face from the cold. She staggered to her feet, heading towards the main gate. At that moment, 2 blinding beams of light illuminated her face. An arrogant, wine-red Maserati braked sharply right in front of the gate, almost hitting her. The car door opened. A uniformed chauffeur rushed out, opening an umbrella. Jessica Sterling stepped out. She wasn't wearing her secretarial uniform but a very expensive burgundy evening gown with a white mink coat over her shoulders. She looked like the true hostess of the party and the house. She walked slowly to Olivia, the umbrella carefully protecting her, not letting a single drop of rain touch her. She looked down at Olivia, who was soaked, her hair stuck to her face, as miserable as an abandoned dog. "Oh," Jessica covered her mouth, her voice filled with false compassion. "Olivia, how did you end up like this? It's raining so hard. Why are you out here?" Olivia lifted her head, her red eyes looking at her. "Ethan had some business to attend to, so he asked me to come and say goodbye to you." Jessica smiled. A sweet smile, but her words were like knives. "After all, for the past 3 years, you've taken care of Ethan for me. I should thank you." She moved closer, lowering her voice enough for only the two of them to hear. "Do you know what Ethan said when he got your signature?" Olivia clenched her fists. "He said," Jessica whispered in her ear, "I'm finally free of that stupid, dirty dead weight." "Jessica," Olivia growled. So angry. The smile on Jessica's lips disappeared, replaced by an expression of superiority and hatred. "Who do you think you are? Do you think the title of Mrs. Prescott was ever really yours?" Slap. A violent slap. Jessica used all her strength. The impact was so strong that Olivia fell into a puddle of dirty water. "Hick," Jessica hissed, her beautiful face contorted. "You've occupied my place for 3 years. For these 3 years, the one who should have been in that mansion was me. The one who should have been loved and pampered by Ethan was me. You owed me this slap." She took a silk handkerchief from her purse, wiped the hand that had just struck Olivia as if she had touched something filthy, and then threw the handkerchief at her. "Look at how pathetic you are. A useless illiterate. You never belonged here." The chauffeur opened the car door for Jessica, and she sat down elegantly. "Oh, right." She turned and smiled one last time. "From now on, the Prescott house has a new mistress. And that 20% of shares? Ethan offered them to me as a wedding gift." The Maserati roared, drove past Olivia, deliberately splashing her with dirty water from a puddle. The heavy iron gate of the estate opened to receive the car and then slowly closed, leaving Olivia outside in the rain and humiliation. Olivia remained motionless in the cold puddle. After a few minutes, she pushed herself up. The torrential rain seemed to have washed away all the weakness and resignation of the past 3 years. She ran a hand through her soaked hair, pushing it back. In the darkness, her eyes no longer showed fear or confusion, only a terrifying coldness and sharpness. She didn't look back at the Prescott estate gate. She turned and started walking in the rain. After a few steps, she stopped at an old public phone booth. She entered, picked up the receiver, but didn't insert any coins. She dialed a long, complex sequence of numbers on the keypad. After a few rings, the call was answered. A man's extremely respectful voice spoke in perfect English. "Ma'am." Olivia looked out at the Beverly Hills rain, her voice calm and cold. "Mr. Adams, get ready." "Ready for what, ma'am?" "Activate the Ariadne Protocol. Notify Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, and Nomura. It's time to collect the net." She paused for a moment and added, "The game has begun." In stark contrast to the cold rain outside, inside the Prescott mansion, the fireplace burned brightly, the flames dancing in glasses of expensive cognac. Ethan Prescott had just showered, wearing a silk robe, and sitting on the sofa with his feet on the table. He was at the height of satisfaction. He had gotten rid of the thorn in his side, obtained the 20% of shares, and was about to save his group. Jessica had also just showered. She wore a thin, transparent black silk nightgown. Barefoot, she came and sat on his lap. Eleanor came down from upstairs, her face beaming with joy. Finally, she sat in the chair opposite. "Finally, our family is rid of that burden." "You did well, Ethan." Ethan took a sip of cognac, his hand firmly around Jessica's waist. "Mother, that was obvious. I told you I wouldn't let an illiterate hick tarnish our family for long." Eleanor looked at Jessica with satisfaction. "Jessica, my dear, it's been hard for you, having to endure the humiliation of being the other woman all this time." Jessica immediately leaned on Ethan's shoulder, her voice a little shy and embarrassed. "Aunt Eleanor, it doesn't matter. As long as I can be with Ethan, I'm happy." She looked at Ethan, then at Eleanor. Besides, she bit her lip with a hesitant but happy expression. "Aunt Eleanor, Ethan, There's other good news. I don't know if I should say it now." Ethan laughed, thinking she wanted a gift. "What is it, darling? I'll give you anything you want. The diamond necklace from the other day, or an estate in the Hamptons?" "It's not that." Jessica patted his chest lightly. "I think," she took a deep breath and placed a hand on her stomach. "I think I'm pregnant. With Ethan's baby." "What?" The glass in Ethan's hand almost fell. He was stunned. Eleanor jumped up, ran to Jessica, her voice trembling with excitement. "Jessica, are you serious? You're pregnant?" Jessica nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm 2 weeks late. I took a test this morning, and it was positive. I was going to tell you this weekend." "Oh my God," Eleanor clasped her hands. "The Prescott family is going to have an heir. We're going to have a successor." Ethan was stunned for a few seconds, and then euphoria took over. Pregnant. He was going to be a father. It was double happiness. He had the money and a child to carry on his name. That useless Olivia Morgan. 3 years, and she couldn't even produce an heir. He hugged Jessica tightly, lifted her, and spun her around. "Jessica, you are my treasure, my goddess of luck." He put her down and kissed her on the forehead. "Mother, did you hear? I'm going to have a son." Eleanor was so happy she was crying. I heard. "Wonderful, my good daughter-in-law." She immediately changed how she addressed her. Jessica snuggled into Ethan's arms, hiding a victorious smile. Of course, she wasn't pregnant. She had bought the pregnancy test online, but she needed a solid guarantee. Ethan was on the phone with his lawyer. "Tomorrow morning, I want the transfer of shares to be finalized. I want to announce the change in the structure of the main shareholders. Mrs. Olivia Morgan will transfer all of her shares to Miss Jessica Sterling." He looked at Jessica tenderly and informed the finance department to prepare for a new round of fundraising. "The Prescott Group is about to take off." He hung up. He looked out the window. The rain seemed to have stopped. He smiled coldly. Bad weather was indeed suitable for getting rid of trash. He had no idea that the real storm, a storm capable of sinking the entire Prescott Group, had only just begun. 9 a.m., Prescott Group headquarters, the Prescott Tower in Manhattan. The atmosphere in the Board of Directors meeting room on the 68th floor was tense. All the board members were present, their expressions grave. The Prescott Group stock had fallen for 3 consecutive days. Ethan Prescott walked in, followed by Jessica Sterling. He wore a navy blue Italian suit, his hair slicked back, his face full of confidence and arrogance, a stark contrast to the gloomy atmosphere of the room. Jessica, as a future shareholder, wore an elegant white skirt suit, smiling and greeting everyone. "Good morning, everyone." Ethan sat in the chairman's seat. "I know you're all worried about the liquidity problem, but I've called you here today to announce some good news." The shareholders looked at each other skeptically. "Our biggest problem, the 20% of shares trapped in the trust," Ethan paused and smiled, "has been resolved. Mrs. Olivia Morgan has agreed to voluntarily transfer all of her shares to Miss Jessica Sterling, present here." The meeting room stirred. "Really, Mr. Prescott? If so, that's great. We can use those shares as collateral for a bank loan." Ethan raised a hand for silence. "Not only that, I'm going to announce." Boom. The meeting room door flew open violently. The CFO, Mr. Lopez, ran in, his face drained of blood. He didn't even have time to knock. Ethan was furious. "Mr. Lopez, what are you doing? Don't you see I'm in a meeting? Mr. Prescott, it's terrible. Mr. Lopez, what are you doing?" Lopez panted, holding a tablet with trembling hands. "Deutsche Bank in Germany just sent an urgent notification." Ethan frowned. "What notification? Have they agreed to extend the loan for the European project?" "No!" Mr. Lopez shouted. They've withdrawn all our credit lines. They're demanding immediate repayment of the $50 million loan. Immediately." The whole room erupted. "What? $50 million? Where are we going to get that?" Ethan jumped up. "What are you saying? Why would they do that? Director Schmidt there is a friend of mine." "I don't know," Mr. Lopez said in a panic. "And it's not over." He tremblingly clicked on another email. Our partners at Nomura in Tokyo just canceled all our orders. They say they've lost confidence in our management capabilities. Ethan snatched the tablet from his hands. His eyes widened as he read the third email. The investment fund J.P. Morgan Chase in New York. They're massively selling off Prescott Group shares. They're dumping them like they're worthless paper. Impossible, Ethan yelled. Why? Why is all of this happening at the same time? Mr. Lopez pointed to another email, an anonymous one that had been forwarded. Because of this, Mr. Prescott. All of them, Germany, Japan, America, they all received an anonymous analysis by email this morning. What email? A detailed and terrifying analysis of our financial failures. It exposes the biotech project in Europe as a debt trap. It analyzes with numerical precision that we falsified last quarter's profits and concludes that the Prescott Group is unable to pay its debts in the next 30 days. Jessica turned pale. Who? Who did this? We don't know. The sender signed it as Ariadne. Ethan was stunned. He had never heard that name. At that moment, the large screen in the meeting room that was displaying financial reports suddenly switched to a financial news channel. A red UR-Gent banner scrolled across the screen. Prescott Group stock plummets. Loses 30% of its value in 1 hour. Chaotic images from the stock exchange. Prescott Group stock glowing in intense red. In freefall. Oh my God. An older shareholder clutched his chest. Margin call. We're going to get a margin call. Ethan's confidence crumbled. No, it can't be. He turned to Mr. Lopez. Calm the market. Tell them it's fake news. It's too late, Mr. Prescott, Mr. Prescott, Mr. Prescott. Lopez said desperately. That analysis is too precise. No one believes us anymore. Ethan staggered, looking at Jessica. His perfect plan, the 20% of shares, the Summit had all become insignificant in the face of this storm. He took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. Convene. He gritted his teeth. Convene an extraordinary general meeting. Immediately. We have to calm them down. We have to find out who's behind this. The chaos in Prescott Tower lasted all day. The CEO's office on the 68th floor was transformed into a war command center. Phones rang off the hook. There was shouting, things breaking. Ethan was like a cornered animal. He had already broken 3 phones in his favorite tea set. Why? He screamed at his management team. Why won't Director Schmidt from Deutsche Bank answer? I've called him 17 times. And Nakagawa from Nomura dares to decline my call. No one dared to answer. Ariadne's analysis was frighteningly accurate. His mind was racing, trying to figure out what he had missed. Suddenly, an idea came to him. Olivia Morgan. He didn't believe she had any value, but he remembered the rumors. The New York media said the Prescott Group's misfortune was due to his cruelty in kicking out his wife and bringing a mistress home. They said Olivia Morgan brought luck and he had destroyed his own fortune. A disparate idea emerged. What if I bring Olivia back? If he brought that hick back, appeared with her before the shareholders, said the divorce rumors were false, that the Prescott family was still united, maybe, just maybe, that would calm things down. After all, she was the one his grandfather had chosen. He still firmly believed Olivia was an illiterate fool, easy to manipulate. He thought she would be somewhere crying, starving. He immediately called his security team. Find her. Find Olivia Morgan, right now. She can't have gone far. In half an hour, the team found her. They found her in a small, cheap motel near the bus station, a damp and dirty place. Ethan didn't think twice. He rushed out of the office, ignoring Jessica's astonishment. He had to bring that woman back. His Bentley screeched to a halt in front of a narrow alley. He stormed into the motel, kicking down the door of room 204. The room was tiny and smelled of mold. Olivia Morgan was sitting on an iron bed. She wasn't crying or panicking, as he had imagined. She was calmly reading a book. The cover was in German, but Ethan, in his panic, didn't notice that detail. He only found her calm irritating. Hick! He ran toward her, snatched the book, and threw it against the wall. You still have the nerve to read? Do you know the Prescott Group is on the verge of bankruptcy because of you? Olivia slowly lifted her head. She still portrayed her usual expression of fear. Mr. Prescott, you threw me out. Shut up. Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her to her feet. "You're coming home with me. Now." "Home? To do what?" she asked, trembling. He lost his patience. "I said you're coming back. Understood? You're coming home, appearing at the general meeting, telling everyone we're fine, that the divorce rumors are false. You say you trust me." He squeezed her arm. "If you do that and the group stabilizes, I'll give you a sum of money. Do you hear me?" Olivia looked at him, the man who had humiliated, deceived, and expelled her. Now he was there, in front of her, begging her to come back, not out of remorse, but to use her one more time. She didn't flinch or tremble anymore. Calmly, she pulled her arm free from his hand. "Mr. Prescott," she called. Her voice was no longer trembling. It was clear and cold. Ethan was stunned by the sudden change. "I am no longer Mrs. Prescott." His eyes widened. "What? What did you say?" "You and I, Mr. Prescott," Olivia looked him straight in the eye. "We no longer have any relationship. You dare?" Ethan couldn't believe his ears. This illiterate hick dared to reject him. "Do you know who you're talking to? Do you know that if I go bankrupt, you won't get a single cent, either?" "I know." He got so angry he wanted to slap her, but the calmness in her eyes made him hesitate. "You will regret this," he screamed. "Who do you think you are to refuse me? Useless." He stormed out, slamming the door. "Stay here and starve to death." He didn't notice the change in her gaze, nor did he notice that the German book he had just thrown was titled Chaos Theory and Quantitative Finance. He had lost his last chance. The next 48 hours were hell for Ethan Prescott. After returning from Olivia's cheap motel, he was even more furious. That hick, that illiterate, had dared to refuse him. In Ethan's eyes, her calmness was the height of stupidity. He swore that after he solved this mess, he would make her kneel and beg him. But he had no time to think about her. The Prescott Group was sinking. Trading of its shares had been suspended due to the precipitous fall. Creditors were lining up in front of Prescott Tower. The extraordinary general meeting was scheduled in 2 days, and it was his last lifeline. He frantically called, using all his contacts, but only received silence or polite refusals. Ariadne's analysis had hit the group's Achilles heel. No one dared to save a sinking ship. Jessica was equally panicked. The position of Mrs. Prescott was not even guaranteed. The child in her womb didn't even exist, and soon she would have to be on the streets with him, begging. Ethan tried to calm her, though his own hands were shaking. "Don't worry, we still have the 20% of shares Olivia transferred. Tomorrow morning, I'll pressure the lawyer to finalize the transfer. Even if the shares have devalued, it's still a large amount. We can use it to negotiate." At that moment, his executive assistant, Ramos, ran in, pale as a ghost. "Mr. Prescott, there's news." "What now?" Ethan yelled. "Another bank pulled our funding?" "No." Ramos shook his head, handing him a tablet. "It's an email, sir. An email that was just sent simultaneously to the inboxes of all the board members and the international partners who abandoned us." "What email?" Ethan snatched the tablet. The email was written in 3 languages: English, Spanish, and German. It was short but powerful. Open letter to the board of directors and creditors of the Prescott Group. "We are Ariadne Capital. We have been closely monitoring the crisis at the Prescott Group, a crisis originating from poor management and erroneous investment decisions. However, we believe in the fundamentals and potential of the group. At the upcoming extraordinary general meeting, a representative of ours will be present as a new strategic shareholder. We will present a comprehensive restructuring plan, including an immediate injection of capital to resolve the entire debt crisis. Sincerely, Ariadne Capital." Ethan gritted his teeth. Ariadne. The same name from the report that destroyed me. "Who are they?" Jessica asked, trembling. "They're circling like vultures." Ethan paced back and forth. "And now they show up as strategic shareholders. It's obvious they want to take this opportunity to seize control of the Prescott Group on the cheap." My God, how cruel, Jessica realized. Cruel. Ethan laughed coldly. "That's business, but they've made a mistake." He sat down, the initial panic replaced by a fighting spirit. "Do they think I'm a pushover? Do they think the Prescott Group is easy to swallow?" He looked at Jessica. Find out who the hell this Ariadne Capital is. Are you going to confront them? Confront them? I'm going to show them who's in charge of the Prescott Group. They want to take control? Let them come. He still had an ace up his sleeve. He believed that the 20% of shares he had swindled from Olivia, combined with his own shares, would be enough to repel any hostile takeover attempt. He had no idea that Ariadne Capital wasn't a vulture. It was the hunter, and he was the prey. While Ethan was frantically preparing for a battle against a takeover, elsewhere in Manhattan, the atmosphere was completely different. The Ritz-Carlton, the most expensive presidential suite, with a dazzling view of the Manhattan skyline at night, Olivia Morgan stood by the window. She no longer wore her country clothes. She wore a black silk robe, her long hair loose, dark as a waterfall. In her hand, a glass of red wine, a 1,990 Chateau Margaux. If Ethan or Eleanor saw her now, they certainly wouldn't believe their eyes. Her aura, noble, cold, and distant, could in no way belong to the illiterate hick they knew. The damp attic seemed like a memory from another life. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door. Come in. Her voice was clear but cold. Mr. Adams entered, a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses. His expression was extremely respectful. He was the manager of Olivia's massive private investment fund, Ariadne Capital. Ma'am. Mr. Adams bowed his head. He had been used to addressing her this way for 8 years. Everything is ready for tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Prescott Tower. Olivia didn't turn, gently swirling the glass, watching the red liquid. And our guests? Mr. Adams opened his planner. Confirmed. Our entire international legal team from the Sullivan and Cromwell firm landed at JFK 2 hours ago. They are resting in this hotel. He turned the page. And as you requested, we have sent personal invitations to the largest creditors. The senior representative from Deutsche Bank in Berlin has confirmed. He read, Director Schmidt, the same one who rejected Ethan Prescott's 17 calls, will be present. The representative from Nomura in Tokyo has confirmed. The executive vice president of J.P. Morgan from New York has confirmed. They were the ones who sold the most of the group's shares, following our instructions. And finally, the Paris Investment Fund has also sent a representative. They are all anxious to meet Ariadne in person, the person who saved them from a disastrous investment in the Prescott Group. Excellent, Olivia finally said. She took a sip of wine. She looked at Prescott Tower, brightly lit in the distance. She could imagine Ethan in a panic, like a wounded animal in there. 3 years. She remembered the day Grandfather Prescott, on his deathbed, took her hand. Give him a chance, he had told her. She had. She remembered the 3 years living like a maid, Eleanor's scornful gaze, Ethan's cold indifference. She remembered the humiliating trap of the charity gala, the signature she deliberately wrote wrong, and she remembered Jessica's slap. She was going to return that slap 100 times over. Ethan Prescott, she whispered to herself, her voice mixing with the New York night wind. For the last 3 years, you owe me. Tomorrow, I will take it all back, with interest. Ma'am, Mr. Adams interrupted her thoughts. The suit you requested for tomorrow is ready. He pointed to a suit hanging ceremoniously on a hanger. It was a pearl-white suit, custom-made at the best tailor in Paris. It was elegant, powerful, and absolutely exquisite. Olivia nodded. Very well, you may leave. Tell everyone to rest well. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Adams left silently, closing the door. In the luxurious presidential suite, Olivia raised her glass in the direction of Prescott Tower. A toast to your stupidity. 9 a.m. Prescott Tower. The headquarters of the Prescott Group had never been so chaotic. Hundreds of journalists from major and minor national and international financial media outlets crowded the main lobby, held back by a dense security barrier. Will Mr. Prescott appear? Will the group declare bankruptcy today? Who is Ariadne Capital? Are they really going to take control? Flashes went off incessantly. The noise and pushing were deafening. Inside the main auditorium on the 68th floor, the atmosphere was even more suffocating. The auditorium, with a capacity for 500 people, was completely packed. Shareholders, from large investment funds to small investors, were all present, their faces expressing confusion, anger, and despair. Their shares were now worth almost nothing. In the front row, in a separate area, were the international creditors' men in expensive suits from Germany, Japan, and America, sitting with faces as cold as stone, watching silently, waiting for their prey to struggle. Ding. The bell signaling the start of the meeting rang. A side door opened. Ethan Prescott entered. He tried to keep his chest out, to appear calm, but his pale face and dark circles betrayed him. At his side, Jessica Sterling wore an expensive black office dress, her makeup deliberately light to seem more credible. One hand tightly gripped Ethan's arm, the other, from time to time, caressed her stomach, a gesture full of intent. She was positioning herself as the future Mrs. Prescott, the mother of the heir. Seated in the family row, Eleanor was also present, looking around with concern but trying to nod in support when she saw her son and Jessica. Ethan went up to the podium, adjusted the microphone. "Today," he cleared his throat, "I know you are all very worried. I admit that the Prescott Group is going through some temporary difficulties." "Temporary?" A shout from the audience. Shareholder Henderson, an older, respected man and an old rival of the Prescott family, jumped to his feet. "Ethan Prescott, you call this temporary?" He pointed to the large screen showing the plunging stock chart. "You have destroyed your grandfather's life's work. You have turned our wealth into paper. That's right. Give us our money back. Ethan Prescott, resign." The auditorium became chaotic. "Silence!" Ethan shouted into the microphone. "Everyone, silence!" He looked at shareholder Henderson. "Mr. Henderson, I know you're dissatisfied with me, but today is not the time for criticism. Our biggest problem is liquidity and the shareholding structure." He took a deep breath, deciding to play his card. He still believed he controlled the situation. "I inform you that the problem of the 20% of blocked shares has been resolved. I have acquired all of those shares." He deliberately lied, saying the process was complete. The auditorium quieted a bit. 20% was a significant number. "Furthermore," he continued, his voice filled with confidence, "as you all know from the email, today we will welcome a new strategic investor, Ariadne Capital. They have promised to inject capital and save the Prescott Group." He managed a weak smile. "Whether their intention is a takeover or a partnership, I, Ethan Prescott, as the largest shareholder, will guarantee everyone's interests." He still thought he was the largest shareholder. He still thought Ariadne was an external enemy he could negotiate with. Shareholder Henderson was about to retort, "What do you mean by that?" Ariadne was the one who, but before he could finish, crack. The main auditorium door, a heavy solid wood door reserved for the most solemn occasions, was suddenly thrown open from the outside. Two blinding beams of light from the hallway poured in, making everyone squint. All sound ceased. Hundreds of pairs of eyes turned in unison toward the door. Out of the blinding light, a figure emerged. The only sound in the huge auditorium was the rhythmic, sharp clack of high heels on the marble floor. The person stepped into the light. It was a woman. She wore a suit, not an evening gown, not an office suit, a powerful pearl white suit with a perfect cut that hugged her slender yet balanced figure. Her long black hair was pulled back into an elegant bun, revealing a high forehead and a proud, swan-like neck. She didn't wear much makeup, but her burgundy lips and her cold, razor-sharp gaze made it impossible to look away. Her aura was not one of wealth but of dominance, a presence so imposing that all the powerful men in the room suddenly felt small. Behind her were not security guards, but Mr. Adams, whom some of the older shareholders vaguely recognized, and behind Mr. Adams, a team of 10 people, men and women, in black suits. They were the elite international legal team from Sullivan and Cromwell. The auditorium was in absolute silence. Everyone held their breath. "Who is she? Is this the representative of Ariadne Capital?" The woman continued to walk down the central aisle toward the stage. As she passed the row of international investors, the powerful men from Berlin, Tokyo, and New York, the same ones who had ignored Ethan Prescott, all stood up in unison. They bowed their heads slightly in a sign of greeting, of absolute respect. At that moment, Ethan was struck by lightning. He froze. His brain refused to process the information. This woman with this queenly aura, with this piercing gaze. How was it possible? It was Olivia Morgan. It was the hick, the simpleton, the useless illiterate he had thrown out of his house just days ago. No, 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 he muttered, taking a step back. Jessica was even more shocked. Ethan, Ethan, she grabbed his arm, trembling. Why? Why is she here? What is she wearing? The terrifying silence was broken by Ethan Prescott's roar. Denial transformed into blind fury. He couldn't accept reality. It had to be a joke. She had come back to beg. She had dared to ruin his meeting. "Security!" he screamed, his shrill voice echoing through the microphone. He pointed his finger directly at Olivia Morgan, his face contorted with rage. "Security! Are you all blind? Who let this hick in here? This is a shareholders' meeting. It's not a place for an illiterate to make a scene. Get her out. Get her out of here now." His roar echoed. The Prescott Group's security guards ran forward hesitantly but were immediately blocked by the team of international lawyers. Olivia Morgan didn't even glance at Ethan. As she passed the family row, Eleanor squinted. The woman looked vaguely familiar. Then her eyes widened. My God, it's her. The woman finally reached the foot of the stage, lifted her head, and looked directly at Ethan Prescott. The fury in his screams still hung in the air. But no guard dared to move forward. They were blocked by the legal team, and, more importantly, intimidated by the woman's presence. Olivia smiled, a cold, distant smile. She calmly picked up the second microphone on the podium, the same one Ethan had just screamed into. She tapped it lightly. Tap, tap. The amplified sound echoed, cutting through the chaos. "Olivia Morgan, what are you doing here?" Ethan seemed awake from the nightmare, his eyes bloodshot. "Are you insane? I can't believe it. And that white suit you're wearing? Where did you steal those clothes? You think just because you wear designer clothes you have the right to come here and make a scene?" Jessica also stammered. Olivia, leave. This isn't a place for you. Don't make Ethan angrier." Olivia finally turned to look at them. Her gaze held no hatred, only absolute pity. To her, his shouts were just the last whimpers of a loser. She ignored him, the chaos, the hundreds of eyes watching her. Calmly, she walked up the steps to the stage where Ethan and Jessica stood. "An illiterate like you, who can't even write her own name properly, dares to call me ignorant?" Ethan raged. Get out before I have your legs broken." Olivia laughed, a soft laugh, but in the silence of the auditorium, it sounded perfectly clear. "Illiterate," she said. She turned to the hundreds of shareholders seated in the audience. She took a deep breath. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice full of strength and authority. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Olivia Morgan." Everyone held their breath. "Perhaps," she continued, "Mr. Prescott and his family have grown accustomed to calling me a hick, ignorant, illiterate over the past 3 years." She smiled. "But the gentlemen present here, especially our international guests, the gentlemen from Wall Street, from Berlin, from Tokyo, perhaps they know me by another name." Ethan Prescott, her voice, clear, crisp, and cold as ice, resonated throughout the auditorium via the sound system. "You remain as ignorant and childish as ever." The auditorium was stunned. Eleanor, in the row below, jumped to her feet. "What did you say? You dare call my son ignorant?" Ethan was so angry he laughed. "You ignorant fool, an illiterate like you." But Director Schmidt, the German with the ever-impassive face who had rejected Ethan's 17 calls, leaped to his feet, knocking over the chair behind him. He stared at her, his eyes wide, his voice trembling with emotion. You are Ariadne." Beside him, the vice president of J.P. Morgan, the powerful American, also jumped up. "My God! Ariadne, the one who wrote the analysis of the Prescott Group, it was her." Ethan didn't understand. "What are you doing?" He turned to Director Schmidt. "Mr. Schmidt, you know this hick? Are you all crazy? She can't read." His shouts no longer held any authority. They were simply pathetic. Olivia didn't need to say anything more. The reverence of the international financial magnates was the most eloquent answer. She looked at Director Schmidt, who was watching her, holding his breath. "I am Ariadne." 2 words. Just 2 words, but they were like an atomic bomb exploding in the middle of the auditorium. The name meant nothing to Ethan and Jessica, but it meant everything to everyone else. The mysterious analyst who had crashed the National Pension Fund with a single report, Olivia picked up the microphone, her sharp gaze sweeping across the entire auditorium, and began her speech. "To begin, I would like to thank Mr. Ethan Prescott, who, in his capacity as CEO, has shown us all what poor management, investment arrogance, and a total lack of responsibility in crisis management look like. It is he who has brought the Prescott Group, his grandfather's legacy, to this shameful situation." Ethan turned pale, staggering backward. He muttered like a madman, "No, it can't be. 7 languages. She can't read." Jessica was in even worse shape. She could barely stand, clinging to Ethan, trembling from head to toe. She didn't understand Olivia's words, but she saw Ethan's expression, the reverence of the international investors. She knew. It was all over. Without looking at any notes, Olivia began in impeccable English, "To our American partners at JP Morgan. I understand your concerns about the liquidity gap caused by this disastrous European venture. Let me be clear. That investment is terminated, effective immediately. My team will present a comprehensive restructuring plan this afternoon, and a personal capital injection from Ariadne Capital will guarantee 100% of your capital." Then she turned to Director Schmidt, her voice shifting to fluent German. "To our German investors, Mr. Schmidt, I appreciate your concern, but the biotech project was a mistake. We will divest from the useless biotech and refocus on Prescott's core competencies, next-generation semiconductor materials. I guarantee this will revolutionize our market position." Director Schmidt sighed in relief and nodded decisively. Her gaze then moved to the representative from Nomura of Japan. She bowed slightly, out of courtesy, and spoke in Japanese. "To our partners at Nomura in Japan, your orders will be reinstated under the condition of a 5-year exclusivity contract. The guarantee I offer is Ariadne's quality, not Ethan Prescott's quality." The Japanese representative hastily bowed in response. Finally, she looked at the Paris Investment Fund. Her voice changed again to melodious but firm French. "To our friends in Paris, the luxury market that Prescott tried to enter is a monumental strategic error. We will sell that division immediately. The injection of funds from my side will cover the financial hole. The funds will be released tomorrow. 7 languages: English, German, Japanese, French, plus Spanish, and 2 others she hadn't even used. All spoken with fluency, precision, and confidence from the mouth of a woman who for 3 years had been called illiterate. Ethan was petrified. He saw Director Schmidt, the VP of JP Morgan, everyone nodding, their faces full of confidence. His worst nightmare was happening. He hadn't just been deceived. He had been deceived by a genius for 3 years. He had treated a genius like a dog. "No," he muttered. 7 languages. Impossible. This is a hallucination." Olivia finished her conversation with the international investors, turned again, and looked directly at Ethan. She switched back to English so everyone in the auditorium could understand. "And now, Mr. Prescott," she smiled coldly, "let's talk about that 20% of shares." Ethan and Jessica froze. "The shares," Ethan jolted. "That's right, I still have the 20% of shares. I have her signature." A ray of hope shone through. He clung to it. "Yes, that's right," he shouted, trying to regain composure. "So what if you know 7 languages? So what if you were pretending? You signed the stock transfer papers. You signed them. Right here." He motioned to Mr. Davis, who stood in a corner, pale as a ghost. "Mr. Davis, bring the contract. Bring it here." "You don't need to bother," Olivia said coldly. She signaled to Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams nodded, connecting a flash drive to the auditorium's projection system. The large screen behind Ethan suddenly went black and then lit up. It wasn't a document, it was a video. The setting was the VIP lounge of the Plaza Hotel on the night of the charity gala. "What is this?" Ethan panicked. "Turn that off. Who allowed this to be projected? Turn it off." But it was too late. The video, recorded from a hidden camera button on Olivia's dress, began to play. The sound was perfectly clear. The video showed Ethan entering, Olivia pretending to be scared. "There are so many letters. I don't know how to read them." It showed Ethan yelling at Mr. Davis. "Shut up!" And it showed him persuading her. "Right here. Come on, be a good girl." The whole auditorium held its breath. My God, he tricked his own wife. He tricked an illiterate person into signing over her assets. He's worse than an animal. "Mr. Prescott," Olivia arched an eyebrow, "we haven't even gotten to the best part yet." The screen zoomed in on the document folder. "And here," Olivia's cold voice sounded in perfect sync with the image, "is the signature I made." The screen zoomed in extremely close on the 3 scrawled words, Olivia Morgan. "What are you trying to prove?" Ethan yelled. "The signature is there. You signed it." "Mr. Prescott," Olivia smiled, "you're the CEO of a large group, and you don't even have basic legal knowledge." She turned to her legal team. A blonde woman, a representative from Sullivan and Cromwell, took the stage. "Good morning, everyone. I am Catherine Miller, legal counsel for Miss Olivia Morgan." She pointed to the screen. "According to the Uniform Commercial Code, a signature must correctly and completely represent the name of the signatory. If a signature is deliberately altered or signed under duress, it will be considered null and void," she signaled. The screen zoomed in even closer on the last stroke of the word Morgan. "Please look closely," said Catherine Miller. The final N in Morgan. Miss Olivia Morgan deliberately added a tiny, almost imperceptible extra stroke, which breaks the letter. "In calligraphic terms, this is an incorrect signature. It is not her name." She smiled. Combined with the video evidence that clearly demonstrates Mr. Ethan Prescott's fraudulent and intentional behavior against a person he believed to be illiterate, she paused and then declared firmly, "This 20% stock transfer agreement is, from the beginning, null and void." Boom. Ethan felt as if someone had hit him over the head with a hammer. Null and void. A fake signature. She had tricked him at the very moment she signed. He looked at Olivia. She was still standing there, calm. That planning, that patience, that cruelty. He was trembling. He was facing a monster. Null. So what? He tried to grasp at straws. "You're still my wife. You still have nothing." Olivia looked at him with pity. "Did you think I only had that 20% of shares, Ethan?" Her question was like a bucket of cold water on his face. "What? What do you mean?" he stammered. "Mr. Adams took the stage with another black leather folder. "Members of the board of directors," he said, his voice loud and clear. 3 years ago, the late Mr. Arthur Prescott Sr., before he died, made 2 wills and created 2 separate trusts." Ethan was stunned. 2 trusts. Absurd. There was only one. "The first trust," Mr. Adams continued, "contains the 20% of Prescott Group shares in the name of Miss Olivia Morgan. This is the public trust everyone knows." He held up the second set of documents. The seal was from a Swiss bank. "And this is the second trust, a secret trust established in Zurich, Switzerland. This trust holds 30% of Mr. Prescott Sr.'s personal shares in the group." The auditorium erupted. 30%. "Why?" Ethan screamed. "Why would grandfather do this?" "Because," Olivia finally spoke, her cold voice cutting through his cry, "this 30% trust had a single activation condition." She looked him straight in the eyes, each word a knife stabbing into his heart. "It would only be activated, and its full ownership transferred to me, Olivia Morgan, on the day that you, Ethan Prescott, his grandson, betrayed me." Silence gripped the auditorium. Betrayal. The lawyer, Miss Miller, took the stage again. "We present the evidence of betrayal." The big screen lit up again with photos. Ethan and Jessica embracing and kissing, holding hands, him giving her the diamond necklace. And finally, the video of him tricking her into signing the papers, and the video of him throwing her out of the house in the rain. "According to the terms of the secret trust," said lawyer Miller, "the behavior of public adultery, fraud to obtain assets, and the violent expulsion of his wife from the home seriously violated the protection clause. This evidence was sent to the Swiss bank the night Miss Olivia Morgan was expelled from the Prescott house." Mr. Adams held up a document with the red seal of a Swiss bank, and here is the confirmation. Received at 1 a.m. today, the Swiss bank has officially released the trust. Olivia stepped forward. She looked at him. You tricked me to get an invalid 20% of shares, but it was your act of fraud that activated the real 30%. She turned to the shareholders. Today, I, Olivia Morgan, officially own the 20% of shares from the first trust plus the 30% of shares from the second trust. She held up 5 fingers. I, she declared, her voice resonating, currently hold 51% of the shares of the Prescott Group. I am the majority shareholder. Boom. Ethan fell to his knees. He couldn't take it anymore. He collapsed heavily into the chairman's seat behind him. 51%. Not only had he lost the 20%, he had lost everything. He had, with his own hands, handed over the Prescott Group to the woman he despised most. No, no, grandfather, how could you do this to me? He cried like a wounded animal. Beside him, Jessica's eyes went wide and then rolled back. She fell backward, fainting. In the row below, Eleanor couldn't handle the shock either. She clutched her chest, staggered, and fainted on the spot. All eyes were on Olivia Morgan, the new queen of the Prescott Group. Security, Olivia's calm, powerful voice cut through the noise. Take Mrs. Prescott and Miss Sterling to the hospital. Don't let them disrupt the meeting. She turned to the stunned crowd. Shareholders, we have wasted too much time on this useless family drama. Now, let's get back to business. Business? Ethan lifted his head. No, the Prescott Group is mine. You can't. Shut up, shareholder Henderson yelled. You no longer have that right. The Prescott Group belongs to the shareholders, not a fraud like you. Olivia raised a hand. The auditorium fell silent. Her lawyer, Miss Miller, took the stage. The Sullivan and Cromwell firm has verified and authenticated the documents from the Swiss bank. Miss Miller hand-staged the documents. Olivia Morgan is the legal and absolute owner of 51% of the voting shares of the Prescott Group. Her power is incontestable. Olivia nodded. Ethan Prescott, did you hear that? She said. Now it's my turn. She took a deep breath. I, Olivia Morgan, as the new chairwoman of the board and majority shareholder of the Prescott Group, she paused, looking directly at Ethan, officially propose a vote for the immediate removal of Ethan Prescott from the position of Chief Executive Officer. She didn't give him time to react. Reasons: poor management, grossly erroneous investment decisions, fraud against shareholders, and the use of illegal means to appropriate company assets. These behaviors have brought the Prescott Group to the brink of bankruptcy. No! Ethan, like a wounded animal, jumped up, trying to lunge at her. You can't do this, you bitch. The Prescott Group belongs to the Prescott family. But before he could touch her, the group's security guards, the same ones who received their paychecks from him an hour ago, immediately moved forward. They didn't stop Olivia, they stopped him. The shareholders began to vote. I agree. Henderson was the first to raise his hand. Removal. We agree as well. Very well. Olivia looked at Ethan being restrained by the guards. She picked up the microphone and delivered the final sentence. Ethan Prescott, you're fired. Those 2 words destroyed what was left of his sanity. No, he struggled. Not to attack her, but to beg. Olivia, you can't do this to me. I'm your husband, Olivia. But Olivia Morgan had already turned her back on him. Desperation turned to madness. Bitch! Viper! I'll kill you, he screamed, trying to break free, but the guards overpowered him. Take him away, Olivia ordered without turning around. 2 burly guards grabbed Ethan and dragged him away. He struggled and screamed crazily as he was dragged down the central aisle, past hundreds of pairs of eyes that looked at him with contempt and satisfaction. As he was dragged to the door, he twisted his head to look at her one last time. The woman in the white suit, standing imposingly on the stage. He no longer screamed insults. He screamed her name, a desolate cry full of regret and despair. Olivia Morgan, I was wrong. Forgive me. It was me who was wrong, Olivia. The heavy wooden door slammed shut, cutting off his cries. The auditorium fell silent. Olivia Morgan, standing on the stage, closed her eyes for a second. She took a deep breath. 3 years were over. She opened her eyes, her gaze sharp again. Mr. Leverapowen. Adams, clean up this mess. Shareholders, she looked at the crowd. The restructuring meeting of the Prescott Group officially begins now. As Ethan was being dragged away, Jessica, who had been paralyzed with shock, came to her senses. She knew Ethan was finished. She had to flee. While all attention was on Olivia, Jessica quietly slipped away, trying to blend in with the crowd. She ran for the emergency elevator, heading for the underground garage. Her Maserati was still there. She had to escape New York. Just as she unlocked her car, 2 bright headlights blinded her. A black Bentley Mulsanne was parked silently, blocking her exit. The door opened. Olivia Morgan stepped out, now wearing a black suit that looked like a death sentence. "Miss Sterling," Olivia's voice echoed in the empty garage. "Where are you going in such a hurry?" Jessica's first instinct was to beg. She fell to her knees, crawling toward Olivia, tears streaming. "Olivia, I was wrong. I was stupid. It was all Ethan's fault. He forced me." Olivia kicked her away in disgust. "Your acting is even worse than mine." Seeing that begging didn't work, Jessica played her last card. She stood up, a hand on her stomach. "You can't do anything to me. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with Ethan Prescott's child, the heir to the Prescott family. The baby is innocent." Olivia smiled, a smile that sent a chill down Jessica's spine. "Pregnant? I believe you're pregnant, but I don't believe it's Ethan Prescott's child. Mr. Adams emerged from the car and handed Jessica a folder. "Open it." Jessica opened it. It was a medical report. Patient, Ethan Prescott. Date, 6 months ago. Conclusion, azoospermia. Diagnosis, infertility. The folder dropped from her hands. "No, infertility." "No," he said. "Yes," Olivia said coolly, "because the real report was intercepted by me 6 months ago. The one he received was a fake that I created. You." Jessica looked at her in horror. "Why?" "To wait for today," Olivia said, "to see how you and his mother would play out the heir farce." "Now, Miss Sterling, whose child are you carrying?" Jessica collapsed. "What I am interested in," Olivia continued, "is this." Mr. Adams presented a second, much thicker folder. "For 3 years, as CEO's executive secretary, you abused your position to receive bribes and kickbacks. You created a shell account in Switzerland to launder the money. Total value, $8.3 million. Miss Sterling, that's enough to send you to prison for 10, 15 years. Jessica was completely paralyzed. "How? How do you know?" "I am Ariadne," Olivia said simply. "No account is secret to me." At that moment, police sirens wailed in the distance. 2 police cars entered the garage. Jessica Sterling, a senior officer, said, "You are under arrest for suspicion of embezzlement and money laundering." "No," Jessica screamed as they handcuffed her. "You venomous bitch, Olivia. You won't have peace. Ethan will never forgive you." "Ethan?" Olivia leaned in and whispered in her ear. "He can barely save himself." "Oh, and I forgot to tell you." She looked at her and smiled. "That slap you gave me on that rainy night? I'll make sure that for the next 10 years in prison, you remember it every single day." Jessica screamed like a madwoman as she was led away. The news from the Prescott Group's general meeting exploded across all media, worldwide. Ariadne revealed. CEO's mistreated wife. The illiterate wife takes control of a billion-dollar group after a speech in 7 languages. Olivia didn't give anyone time to doubt. That same afternoon, she got to work. First, pay the debt. She called an emergency meeting with the international creditors. "Gentlemen, 1 hour ago, Ariadne Capital, on behalf of the Prescott Group, settled the $50 million debt to Deutsche Bank in full." Director Schmidt was stunned. A quick call to Berlin confirmed it. "You used your personal money." "I will not let the Prescott Group fail over a trivial debt," Olivia stated. "Second, renegotiate." She laid out her plan, speaking to each investor in their native language, outlining a precise, brilliant strategy to cut losses, refocus on core strengths, and double down on profitable ventures. Within a week, after a bloody purge of Ethan's incompetent cronies and the installation of her own elite team, the Prescott Group's stock was relisted. It didn't just recover, it soared. In just 1 week, its market capitalization surpassed even the peak of her grandfather-in-law's era, and on the cover of Forbes magazine worldwide was the face of Olivia Morgan. The headline, "From Humiliated Wife to Queen of Finance, The Incredible Story of Ariadne." While Olivia ascended, others were cast into the abyss. Eleanor awoke in the hospital to find her son under investigation, her home seized, and her credit cards frozen. Stripped of everything, she went to Prescott Tower and begged for mercy. Olivia had her brought up to the 68th floor office. Eleanor knelt and wept. "Daughter-in-law, mother was wrong. Save Ethan. He's your husband." Olivia looked at her with ice in her eyes. "Daughter-in-law? Did you, for even a second, ever consider me your daughter-in-law? For 3 years you called me useless, barren, illiterate. You forced me to kneel and clean when I had a fever. You watched your son humiliate me, and you applauded." She stood over the kneeling woman. "You used to say, 'Just looking at you gets on my nerves.' Well, Eleanor, looking at you kneeling at my feet, I feel very irritated too." She had security throw her out and blacklisted her from the building forever. Ethan Prescott's assets were frozen. He became a penniless outcast overnight. Friends and business partners refused his calls. He wandered the streets of New York, a ghost in a designer suit. He ended up in a dirty alley, drinking cheap liquor to forget. On the third night, drunk and despairing, he stumbled into the street. A truck, unable to brake in time, hit him. He woke up in a noisy public hospital ward. His right leg was gone, amputated. On the small TV in the corner, Olivia's face appeared, announcing the Prescott Group's brilliant restructuring plan. He had lost everything. He was a cripple. 2 months later, Ethan was discharged. He lived in a tiny, squalid room, washing dishes in a small diner to survive. The prosthetic leg caused him constant pain, but it was nothing compared to the agony in his soul. Regret consumed him. He had possessed a treasure and called it trash. He cleaned himself up and went to Prescott Tower. He wasn't allowed in, so he knelt. He knelt on the cold granite in front of the main entrance, a man with one real knee and one prosthesis, enduring the stares and whispers of passers-by. He knelt for 6 hours. Finally, he was brought to a meeting room. Olivia entered, an aura of noble power about her. He fell to his knees again, weeping. "I was wrong, Olivia. I was so wrong. I was arrogant, stupid. I love you, Olivia. It was Jessica who blinded me. Forgive me. Let's start over." Olivia listened silently. "You love me?" she asked, her voice calm. "You love me, so you called me a useless illiterate. You love me, so you tricked me into signing my assets over to your mistress. You love me, so you threw me out in the rain and told me I was useless. Your love, Ethan, is disgusting. You owe it to grandfather," he cried, playing his last card. "He saved your life. This was the last taboo." Olivia's calm broke. "You dare mention grandfather?" Her voice trembled with rage. "He knew what you were. He gave you a 3-year test. 3 years to prove you were worthy. He said if you betrayed me, I owed you nothing. Take it all back," he said. "Show no mercy. Those 3 years, Ethan, were your exam, and you failed miserably." He finally understood. He hadn't lost the group because of her, he had lost it because of himself. Mr. Adams placed the divorce papers on the table. "I won't sign." Ethan screamed, a last act of defiance. "If I don't sign, you'll always be Mrs. Prescott. You think you have a choice?" Olivia said coldly. Her lawyers had prepared for this. Sign and be a free, poor cripple. Don't sign and face a unilateral divorce, lawsuits for fraud, abuse, and massive debt that would land him in prison. He had lost. Completely. With trembling hands, he scrawled his name. He collapsed onto the table, sobbing like a child. Olivia took the signed papers and walked out without a backward glance. 1 year later, the Prescott Group was now the Ariadne Global Group, a multinational tech and finance empire. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Olivia Morgan sat on the main stage, discussing the future of quantum finance. She received a standing ovation from the world's most powerful leaders. At that same moment, in a filthy diner in a poor New York neighborhood, Ethan Prescott sat in the darkest corner. He was skeletal, aged 20 years and one. He was eating leftover soup. The old TV on the wall showed the news from Davos. He saw her radiant, beautiful, applauded by the world. She was in paradise. He was in hell. The contrast shattered what was left of his mind. He threw his bowl against the wall and screamed, a non-human sound of eternal damnation, of absolute regret, madness, and despair. He was thrown out into the rainy street, where he lay curled in a puddle, weeping. In Davos, Olivia stepped onto a balcony. The Swiss air was clean and cold. The snow-capped mountains surrounded her. Her revenge was complete. What happened to Ethan no longer mattered. Forgiveness was never an option. The best punishment was to be forgotten. She looked up at the vast, starry sky. "Grandfather, I did it." A genuine smile of relief and serenity touched her lips. She was free.